Dan Bilak joins us from Ukraine. It's nice to see you, especially under the circumstances. It's nice to see you in the flesh.
Thanks very much.
I guess you can't really give too much away, but where do we find you?
I'm in Kiev.
What's going on around you? I mean, we look at Mariupol, and it seems like 80% of that city has been demolished. What's happening in Kyiv?
Probably 90. Kyiv, most of the damage took and the bombardment took place in the north and the northwest part of the city. You get a fair bit of feel for where the bombardment is happening all over the place because it's so loud. But the real devastation was in the surrounding villages. We've actually stopped them around Kiev, and in fact, as of yesterday, they were pushed back over 30 kilometers. We are actually winning this war, and if we get some more help from NATO, we can win this war. And these guys are, they're out of grub, they're out of gas, and they're out of guts. They don't want to fight. So it's much easier to, destroy maternity hospitals, shoot innocent civilians, rape women, and basically go to town on the local population. We're dealing with a terrorist state.
Well, and what we're hearing is, first of all, the soldiers were hoodwinked into this military mission. They thought they were going on maneuvers and practice sessions in Crimea, and all of a sudden they're attacking a place that is probably very familiar to them because they probably have relatives there. But we do hear they're running out of fuel. They've got stale rations. The morale is horrible. What can you add to that?
Oh, we just kill them. That's all you can do. We are going to use them as fertilizer for our fields. Don't buy this stuff about they all came for educational purposes. We have found on prisoners and on dead bodies plans that they have still dated from January about what was going to happen in Ukraine. So a lot of them are using this as an excuse to try to say, oh, well, we really didn't know. It's the same for the Russian people. I hear a lot about, well, this is Putin's war. It's not really the Russian people. Russian people are absolutely complicit in this. They were ecstatic when he stole Crimea and the Donbass 8 years ago. He had an 82% approval rating. So they've been enablers of this terrorist activity now for 8 years. This is a war of annihilation and extermination. He's out to rid the planet of Ukrainians. We will win because we are fighting for the right to exist. And when you're defending your land and your family and your community under those circumstances, you will do anything. Russians still believe their own myths and propaganda about Ukrainians. They really have no clue who we are. One of the lines in the Ukrainian national anthem is that we will lay down our souls and bodies for our freedom. And that's what Ukrainians are teaching the Russians, and they're teaching the world. There's no way. There's no Ukrainian that I know that says, well, maybe it's time to negotiate a surrender. None.
Maybe I'm too much of a bleeding heart. Do you not feel for the average guy who signed up because he needed to get a paycheck, who has now been sent into a war and is going to die for something that is going to fail?
When he came across the border, he probably figured out pretty quickly that what he was doing and where he was, they can all surrender. It's not a problem. He has choices on the ground. They've now created Stalinist-type units that go behind the frontline soldiers to make sure they don't surrender. But lots do. So I don't have any capacity and emotion to worry about those guys and their families, etc. That's their problems. Every one of those guys who is shooting artillery and flying airplanes, they're going to be lucky if they die.
Based on your knowledge of Toronto, I'd like to make this to be a more real thing for the people listening to our conversation. What would the bombardment of Ukrainian cities seem like if that same bombardment was happening in Toronto?
Well, let's start with the CN Tower being taken out. We can talk about the all of King and Bay being bombed. You have all the beautiful condos downtown by whatever the Sky Dome is called. You can tell how long I've been out of the country. All of that, people having, just having their meals and enjoying their families, and all of a sudden you have rockets coming into your building. So if you picture a downtown and midtown in rubble, that gives you an idea of what Kharkiv, Chernihiv, and Mariupol look like today. And all of you Torontonians running downstairs to make sure that the ones who can make it from your 22nd or 31st floor condos can make it down into the subway system to shelter inside the subway stations for a week, for 2 weeks, for 3 weeks. Very little food, very little water, children crying, nowhere to go, cold, hungry. Welcome to my world.
I was sanctioned by Facebook for saying I wanted to see Vladimir Putin hanged in the public square. I wonder about your own
Congratulations.
thoughts. Thank you. I wonder what your thoughts on Vladimir Putin are.
I mean, what can I say? I mean, how do you what kind of thoughts can I have about a mass murderer and a genocidal maniac? I can't do anything about Vladimir Putin. But what I can do is appeal to the people of Canada and the people of other countries to really put pressure on NATO governments to, as much as they're doing, as much as they're helping, they have to do more. We are running out of ammunition. We are running out of artillery. We need more javelins. And we need, President Zelensky today addressed NATO and said, look, we want 1% of your tanks. 1%, that will turn the tide. 1% of your airplanes. Why wouldn't you give us your Soviet era airplanes to use? And at some point, if you don't have the moral clarity of the courage of your convictions, you start to have moral culpability for what goes on and the slaughter and pulverization of Ukrainian citizens. You got to stand up to this guy. He's weak. He's very weak. He's now not fighting against Ukraine. He is fighting for his own survival. And that's what makes him particularly dangerous. But it also provides NATO with a real opportunity to push this guy and to end this war. Challenge him, push him. But you have the strongest military alliance in the history of humanity, and it renders itself impotent.
You and I are talking on Zoom so we can see each other. You've got this background in back of you of a kitchen that could be in Etobicoke or Scarborough, but it's actually in Kyiv. Do you have enough food? Do you have enough water? What is day-to-day life?
We have a lot fewer choices on the shelves in the stores these days, clearly. But Ukrainians are very resourceful people. I saw this coming a long time ago, so I stocked up. People share, etc. We're not on wartime rationing. Gas is harder to find. You have to move around, but there are some very brave truck drivers who are moving around the country, keeping the gas stations filled. The real crisis, the humanitarian crises, are in 4 or 5 places, and they're deliberately doing this. They are basically terrorists taking whole cities hostage. They are bombing factories that make food, bombing civilian infrastructure, bridges, dams. They're taking nuclear power stations hostage. These are war crimes. These are crimes against humanity, and these are terrorist crimes. And that's how Putin and his henchmen and his countrymen should be dealt with. They're terrorists.
Are you ready to die for this?
I think the problem is that I ask the question in reverse. Is anybody in the West prepared to die for anything? Is there something that you believe in strongly enough that you're prepared to die for? And, there's a saying that Ukrainians have, and that I subscribe to. It's better to die on your feet than live on your knees. And this is existential. And he's not going to stop with Ukraine. That's the other message to NATO. They've already been very clear that they're going after, once they take Ukraine, the plan is to invade Poland and the Baltic states. So, help us now. Avoid more deaths. I'm all about living, not about dying. And we all do what we can here to support the war effort in whatever way people feel that they can contribute best.
Dan, thank you for this. Good luck.
Thanks very much.